Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, June 1st, 2021. Wow, we're already in June. Hello, everybody. I'm Tristan, your host for tonight. My name's Tristan. I host Step Back History, and Tristan won't shut up. And yeah, hello. Should probably be looking over here at the camera. I stream 2 days a week on Monday and Tuesday when my internet lets me anyway. On Mondays, I stream from noon until 2 Eastern Time. And then on Tuesdays, I stream from 7 till 9 Eastern Time. So the Monday stream is called The Monday Discourse. It's with Mia Mulder, so that's always fun. And tonight, you know, you're just stuck with me. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And also, just so this is kind of a new thing, but we have a clip channel now. So if you want to catch clips from previous streams, I'm putting a link in the chat right now to the channel you can check out, where I'm trying to post one stream and one one short and one long every day. So that's a thing I intend to do. I might also, depending upon how people feel about it, I might also just upload the entirety. Speaking of which, hi for everybody. I just started recording the stream because I forgot because I'm a dum-dum. Yeah, so I might be just uploading the entirety of the streams up there too, if that's something that people want. Let me know if that is, but clips, either way. Whatever happened to the reactor? The show wasn't doing super great, and I needed to open up some time in my schedule for other projects, and honestly, just to get work done. I was finding myself falling behind, and yeah, taking some of my most productive time. And also, it was a type of stream that I really wouldn't be able to post. It was always getting copyright flagged, so it just wasn't worth it, really. That's the long, short end of it. If you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory. Or if you are on Twitch, and you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month that you can use to support an independent Twitch creator. If you choose me, I'd be very grateful, but of course, please use it, because if you don't, Amazon just gets to keep your money. But you're helping an independent creator make stuff, so that's good. That's a thing that we should all be helping with. Put some coins in that, in all those, what's it called? In all those guitar cases of all of us buskers, all of us internet buskers. You know, even better if it's Jeff Bezos' money, right? If you want to check out my latest video came out on Saturday. It is about the police. It seems to be doing very well, so that's good news. Everybody seems pretty happy with it. That makes me happy. There we go.
Can't wait to get my exclusive sticker.
Oh yes, yeah. Thanks, Matt. The sticker. Yeah. So $5 patrons and up get stickers after 3 months. So that's a thing. Okay. Oh yeah. I should probably have mentioned like other things that make sense, like that patrons get to see videos early, and that you can do that ad free and early and sponsor free, and they what's it called, for as little as 86 cents a month if you go with an annual plan. So that's the selling part. Next up, we've got. What's the next thing I'm working on? I'm working on a video on being called. The title that I'm working on is just called I'm becoming a prepper, and here's why. So that'll be fun. We'll see how people react to that one. I have a feeling that's going to be spicy in a lot of ways, so we'll see where that goes. But that's the thing I'm working on. I'm starting the script tomorrow. Okay. Now, next up is a link where you can submit questions to the stream. For future streams, I guess I should say. We're probably good for tonight, but who knows? We'll see where things go. Sometimes I don't get into the questions at all. Sometimes I go through a whole bunch, so we'll see. Just see how the flow of the show takes us, you know? Coffee was good. Thank you. Define prepper. That's a good... I'm going to do in the video, but basically taking concrete measures to be able to survive and help in a community if, say, something like a disaster happened and the state didn't come to save you, or if, we ended up in some sort of major natural disaster, or if the government finally realizes through, when automation becomes more of a thing, the government realizes that they don't really need workers anymore, so they can stop pretending to do things to keep us suppressed. Whatever. So we'll see where that goes. Who's giving me a doot? Oh, it's the city. Okay. And also, if this is your first time in the stream, if this is your first time watching the stream, we have a very lovely and active community. So please say hello, make yourself known, and we will you'll be welcomed with open arms. So there you go. So I think that's all. That's all my opening spiel. Got it. Only took me 7 minutes. I'm getting good at this. I've gone through that opening list of things like a dozen times, or not a dozen, hundreds of times at this point. But here we are. Oh boy. So what's going on in the world? I actually have been on a bit of a Twitter vacation, so I don't really know too much about what's going on in the world right now. Because my news feed is always just filled with hyper-specific Ontario stuff and Canadian news. So, I don't know. I think that there's like a higher fans joke that's going around on Twitter that I don't know much about. Make my Twitter vacation permanent? Maybe. Turns out that even just doing like a couple things, like taking it off of my phone and taking it off of the bookmarks on my web browser. So if I want to go to Twitter, I have to like manually type in the URL, has reduced the amount of time that I go to that page drastically. And now when I go to the page, I don't feel like staying long. It just feels like it's outside of my like home turf on the internet now. So it's like, oh, that was so fucking fast. What can we do to pressure the Canadian government to investigate the mass graves? Good question. So if anyone doesn't know, oh boy. So where do we start? Because there's probably a lot of non-Canadians here in the chat who probably don't follow Canadian news and know about this fucking horrific story that's going on in Canada right now. So to start, Canada has this reputation that we're this like, progressive, woke country that everything is great and what's wonderful here and don't worry, we're good. Which is a carefully managed PR stunt for the fraud of a country we are, where we are a racist settler colonial nation that has been absolutely horrific to the indigenous people that we built our country on top of. So, one of the things that we did, now we're not the only country to have done this, but we did it a lot longer, and the fact that we did it at all is still an absolute crime against humanity. It's something kind of like I'm trying to think what they were called. Like the Spanish had a sort of system, the Americans had a sort of system like this too. It's fairly common in settler colonial states, which is just residential schools, essentially. And Canada had this system of residential schools where we would forcibly take Indigenous children away from their families and put them in these horrible boarding schools where they were very brutally treated, malnourished, underfunded institutions where abuse, both physical and sexual, was rampant, and it existed for the explicit purpose of trying to westernize Indigenous Canadians, specifically destroying their culture. So they were forced to convert to Christianity. They had their Indigenous language removed. Boys, these are children. Boys were forced to cut their hair. All these things happened. And it was a horrible system of abuse, which didn't entirely end until the 1990s. So, there's a little bit that I talked about there about maltreatment. And one of the things that is an undersung part of the story of residential schools, which is a thing that we barely talked about when I was a kid, and now we're finally trying to get some attention given to it, is that these children were very poorly treated. And a lot of them died. And we kind of don't even have, because they weren't like the government records or anything like that, we don't even have a full idea of how many died. So, and those who survived were often like absolutely psychologically traumatized, passing down trauma through multiple generations and everything. So, a few weeks back, I think it was actually last week, it became public. I think this was known about for maybe a few weeks because I think they were trying to find some way to release it under a more amenable terms. But last week, it became public knowledge that in British Columbia, a residential school was found, an excavation in a former residential school in British Columbia, unearthed a mass grave of 215 bodies. And right now we're going through the process of trying to identify who these people buried in a mass grave are and who their next of kin are. As with many things to do with the brutal treatment of Indigenous people, the Prime Minister has said that this is a very big and important deal and will probably proceed to do basically nothing about it. And now we have to, we as, you know, this country, this genocide project known as Canada, has to, you know, re-reckon the fact that there are hundreds of corpses of children that died needlessly because of a school system that was designed to commit cultural genocide and obviously actual genocide of an entire race of people who, you know, this continent-sized country belongs to. So, is the government going to do anything about this? There might be like what can even be done? At this point, the residential school system is gone. It looks like maybe there's some talk about implementing and then maybe increasing reparations to the victims of the residential school system, because there are several of them alive today. And then there's just the grim process of finding out who all of these people were and whether or not they have family. So that's a situation. That's what's happened in Canada this week. Honestly, I haven't read in depth about it because I have like a feeling that I would not have the constitution to take that much. It's absolutely horrifying. It's not surprising. This was like, you know, the death of a lot of children at the hands of these residential schools was something that was known about. The scale at this one school, the scope, just how many children were buried there is a little shocking, but oh boy, it's a lot to take in. The discourse in Canada seems to be really, they're still alive. They must be at least like 50 by now. There are, because like I think that the residential school program was shut down largely in the 1970s, but a few did hold out until the 1990s. But at the very least, like, yeah, there are still people who are, you know, they're still up in age, but they are still literal victims of the residential school system. And on top of that, like, reparations don't need to be directly to the people who were victimized by the system. Like, residential schools destroyed people's lives who then would grow up to become, you know, like psychologically shattered human beings who pass on traumatic things by by abusing children of their own. And so like there's like generations of pain caused by the residential school system that still reflects it today. Even like to like there was this situation in Northern Ontario a few years ago where they were like literally having like a rash of youth suicides in an Indigenous reserve in Northern Ontario, where like they were literally trying to figure out how to stop young people from just committing suicide in huge numbers. Like this, like the residential, the cultural genocide, the actual genocide, the medical experimentation, the residential school system, the multiple and relentless abuses that have been inflicted upon our Indigenous people by the racist settler colonial state of Canada are incalculable. And yeah, just every time something like this comes up, it just reminds me of just how bad we were, how bad we are, and how like there's still so much to be done to try and even stop the endless pain that we're causing these people, and then to find some way to reverse and make and find some sort of way to do reconciliation for all the horrible things that we've done. And we are nowhere close to doing that. And our government seems wholly disinterested in maintaining this, or wholly disinterested in doing anything about it. Justin Trudeau has a long history of saying he likes to do things while not doing anything. Indigenous Canadians are still murdered in huge numbers, captured in huge numbers, kidnapped and sold into sex slavery or into into human trafficking, especially of Inuit people. That's like a horrible thing that we just don't do anything about. And don't forget, we're also in still the age of midnight rides, like where in Canada our police are just absolutely brutal murderers who go out and murder Indigenous people in the prairies. One of the most famous is in Saskatchewan. They do things called midnight rides, where police will pick up an Indigenous person who might be like, drunk in public or something like that, drive them like, several kilometers out of the city when it's like negative 40 degrees Celsius, and then just kick them into the snow and leave them there to freeze to death. And this is this is a thing that the RCMP are have a long history of doing. And so yeah. Is this why you get anxious when I talk about taking away religious fundamentalist kids? I mean, it's not a reason. This is what happens when you try to say, I don't like your religious beliefs, so I'm going to take you away. I'm going to take your children away to force them into it. This is cultural genocide. This is what cultural genocide looks like. This is the thing that when you want these atheist re-education camps for religious children, this is what you'd be doing. This is like, yeah, it's absolutely horrible what we've done. And like I know I'm just running my mouth at this point, talking in circles, because like what more is there even to say? It's one of the worst things human beings have done to other human beings and are continuing to do. Don't forget where it came out last month. They were putting IUDs in Indigenous kids as young as 10. Jesus Christ. Robert Evans did an episode on Canadian residential schools. Yeah, yeah. It's a Behind the Bastards. It's pretty good actually. I don't know if this happened in America, but in Canada, Indigenous children were also experimented upon when we were trying to figure out how to make synthetic vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. And so children were given like strange cocktails of food as we try to figure out what vitamins and minerals did to people. So that's fun, giving children rickets intentionally so you can figure things out. This is great. This is the things that yeah. Could you say more about land back? So land back is the sort of movement that. So land back is, in many ways, a lot of what it says. It's ways to say that the way to reconcile the violent history of Canada being a settler colonial state trying to take over Indigenous territory is to start giving that land back. This doesn't mean like a mass handover or like mass deportation of the whites or anything like that. What it is a slower process of changing our governments to work more on Indigenous principles and doing things like giving local Indigenous nations the right of first refusal for any land that goes up for sale, and really just returning the stolen property back to the people who it rightfully belongs to. Be a slower process, and it's yeah. That's about like the extent that I know about like the concrete targets of land back. But going forward with the idea that this land rightfully belongs to the nations of which it was stolen from, and that we should, with all due diligence, try to get it back to the right owners. So. Hey, okay. Someone's talking about landback.org. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. Let's take a look at this. Guess I could browser. Manifesto. Is a relationship with Mother Earth that is symbolic and just, where we have reclaimed stewardship. It is bringing our people with us as we move towards liberation and embodied sovereignty through an organization political framework. Okay, this is land back. Okay. Don't burn bridges. Don't defend our ways. Organize to win. Move from abundance. Okay. Launch the Land Back campaign as a mechanism to connect, coordinate, resource, and amplify this movement. And the communities are... Okay, here. Dismantle white supremacy structures that forcefully removed us from our lands and continue to keep our people in oppression. The Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service. Okay. Defund white supremacy and the mechanisms and systems that enforce it and disconnect us from the stewardship of the land. Police, the military-industrial complex, Border Patrol, ICE. Okay. Return all public lands back to Indigenous hands. Makes sense to me. Canada is like mostly public lands, so we could give back a fuck ton of Canada to Indigenous people if we wanted to. But we hold on to that land so that we can give it to logging companies and mining concerns. Return all public lands back to Indigenous hands, moving us out of an area of consultation into a new era of policy around free, prior, informed consent. Sounds good to me. Yeah, Canada just gave its public lands back to the nations who actually belonged here. That would be huge. Because, yeah, Canada, like, the settler colonial part of Canada is really just some very lightly, what's it called? Very, very lightly inhabited parts of the country. Most of us live within a few kilometers of the border with the U.S. And then if the rest was just returned to the people it belonged to, that'd be a good idea. If our solar system was in a globular cluster so the nearest stars were light weeks rather than years away, do you think we'd be more interested in space exploration if visiting other stars in less than decades was actually physically possible? I suppose. That's a lot to speculate. To speculate, what if Earth was in a different galaxy? Then what would happen? That's... it's... Like, that's a lot to speculate on. But I mean, people suspect that, aliens might not even consider spaceflight because their planet has clouds. So maybe that would be more of a thing. I don't know. But our issue with space, I think the thing holding us back for space exploration is just that it's not so much that there's not a will for it. There's, if anything, if you look at like the billionaires who are trying to go to Mars, there's too much of a will for it, if anything. It's just that the technology is not there. And also, there's nothing we need out there, really, at this point. And in many ways, it's used as an excuse to disregard the fact that we are destroying the unique, beautiful biosphere that is our planet. So that's, Would you need to get white people back on board with giving the land back? Or are you proposing doing this in an undemocratic way? I'm proposing doing this in a democratic way, which is returning stolen property. That's the way to do it. You what's it called? If somebody if you got mugged and then you caught them and you were like, give me back my wallet, and they were like, I don't want to, and then you'd be like, well, you voted to not give me back my wallet, so I guess there's nothing I can do now. So, and if anything, it's not land that belongs to anybody. It's land owned by the Canadian federal government. They are fully within their rights to return it to the indigenous people they stole it from. So someone's like, what are your thoughts on fully autonomous nation for Native American tribes that are similar to the Vatican and Rome? I don't think that goes far enough. There's not... In the US and in Canada, there are massive, 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 massive chunks of the country that belong to the government. Give that back. Just give it. Just go. It belongs to the people it belongs to. I don't hear much of Native Americans trying to make claims on Boston. They want the territory that they've been promised, or that they want the big tracts of land that we just have for no reason to be given back, that we just hold on to lend to corporations for resource extraction. That's the stuff to give back. Then we can have a different conversation when it comes to what happens with the rest. What are your thoughts on the idea that Rojava has private property enshrined in its constitution? Does that affect its anarchist principles? Rojava's not necessarily anarchist. It has anarchist principles, as you said, but it's not capital A anarchist. It's definitely it's democratic confederalism. It's it's Ocelanism, right? It has, and it's also a transitionary thing. So it's not exactly a thing planned from square one to be this grand project as much as it was this community built out of the realities of the war against ISIS. So, it's not going to be perfect. No project is ever going to be. It is, but it It's focused on what works for the situation at hand and the culture and the norms of where they are. If you gave Rojava a few more years and, didn't have them constantly at war, maybe they could do more ambitious things, but... Are the descendants of settlers not entitled to democratic representation then? In general, yeah. But the thing is, we're not talking about mass evicting or we're not talking about indigenous people doing to us what we did to them, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about handing over public land that nobody lives in, or very few people live in, land that we only hold for resource extraction purposes. It's like forests and logging and mountains and stuff, and giving that to the indigenous people who it was stolen from. It's just because you're not the person who stole something, if you bought stolen merchandise and then someone comes up and says, oh, but we have all this proof here that is stolen merchandise and we need to return it to the people it belongs to. The person who owns the stolen property, even if they didn't personally steal it, they're just benefiting from the theft. Just because they did not personally do the stealing doesn't mean that they have a say over whether it goes back to the people it belongs to. Do you think democratic Confederalist principles would eventually wipe out capitalism organically? Possibly. It's a much more efficient system than dealing with global capitalism. Capitalism's a nightmare that really only... Capitalism is really only an economic system that functions through the use of state violence to impose it upon people. If the government doesn't actively do work to violently enforce capitalist dominance over its people, then it will go away. It's an inefficient system that's only upheld by state violence. Is So That Happened podcast done? I don't know. I keep hearing mixed things. I have no idea. What's my take on UFOs? Oh, boy. Tough thing to claim. So, there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this. Okay. I need to... My positions on the UFO stuff and UFOs in general is that, first of all, I have to acknowledge that I am very... I have a lot of motivated reasoning, I very want to believe, right? I'm a very want to believe Fox Mulder person, and so I try to approach any UFO talk with that in mind. I have to check my want for everything to be aliens. Look at this hair. This is ancient aliens' hair. This is you know what I want. So looking at things, I am so... Maybe I should just go through it on a list of my least insane ramblings to my most insane ramblings. So the least insane ramblings I have about UFOs is that it seems that the government always seems to disclose UFO information when the federal government needs people to be distracted from something, like, say, the Israeli occupation of Palestine. It is interesting that that's always the thing that comes up. Although this recent one has to do with the report that's coming out on the 25th, which was done through the COVID-19 relief bill somehow. That part I'm not the most sure on, but I think it was like written into it that it needs to be out within 6 months or something, and that's coming up. And that what we do know is that the Pentagon does have a department for investigating into unmanned aerial phenomenon. You know? Which they are not saying is necessarily aliens. But, and would be a hard sell, because we do live in an age where drones and quadcopters are a thing. And, you know, you can get something pretty impressive for $40 at Walmart now. So imagine what, like, fancy government research groups are doing, right? And so, from the stuff that I've picked up, the Pentagon does not know what these things are, and doesn't seem to be, and doesn't seem to think that it's of a how to put this together. They don't seem to be convinced that it is of any country or some sort of technology that they just don't recognize. Because, yeah, the United States is the one that has the unlimited military budget for DARPA and stuff like that. So if technology like the Tic Tac that, like, did like a 10,000 foot dive in less than a second or something bananas like that, if that's like a thing, like if that's a technology that exists, DARPA probably has it. But if they aren't aware of it, either it's the fact that the U.S. military is so big and bloated that nobody's communicating, although now that it's pretty public knowledge, maybe somebody would have been able to talk to somebody and make that happen. So the fact that it's just like DARPA research that even the Pentagon doesn't know about is probably not a thing. Is it Chinese research that Americans don't know about? There's some of the more unhinged theories are like that there was this Chinese national who was doing quantum physics research on anti-gravity shit, who randomly went missing in the late 90s, and people think that, like, the people who knew her think that she went back to China to do research, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden this thing's out there. This is not something that I think I'm very convinced by, but this is something that, like, you know, if I've had a few drinks and it's late at night, I might, you know, entertain. But what seems more logical is that they keep talking about these UFOs showing up. It always shows up when it always shows up in American airspace. They're always invading American airspace, and that these things are they don't know what they are, and they're always framed with some sort of threatening menace towards them. So part of me wants to think that they're not, maybe not hoaxes, but they're like, you know, sensor ghosts and things like that, that the people who are reporting on it are being ordered to, you know, try to gin up that it's aliens, because then they can probably then they can use that to justify increasing the U.S. military budget. Like, when we're dealing with, like, whether or not the U.S. military is, like, doing something to try and get more money for more bombs and guns and you know, airplanes, versus whether, you know, there are extraterrestrial intelligences in our backyard, the trying to get more military budget story makes more sense. But then, you know, I'll say that, and I'm like, okay, we're good. And then I'll be like, oh, fuck, but what if it's aliens, though? If those things, if like the Tic Tac incident from 2004, for example, is real, it shows that there are physics and technology possible that we are not even ready to have conversations about yet. Like, we haven't even figured out the physics of how this is possible yet. And that is spooky. That is spooky. But also, what is more believable, that's real stuff from real UFOs, from real aliens, or if is the U.S. military lying for more money? I'll tell you, one feels more believable to me. You know, flushing the Pentagon with money to protect against extraterrestrials feels like a new way to do like a Cold War or a war on terror that absolutely nobody could criticize. So that's where I feel. And then the more alcohol I have, the more that my motivated reasoning, I forget about my motivated reasoning, and my mind goes away from like, it's probably the U.S. trying to get more money for the military, and goes towards like, but what if it's aliens? Because shit, if it's aliens, fuck, man. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can handle aliens at this point. Like, think about it. Okay, like, really, like deep down, think about it. If, like, tomorrow, we get, like, confirmed fucking shit, like, it's fucking aliens. Aliens are real now. They're just real. This isn't like a, what's it called? This isn't a sci-fi thing. This isn't a, like, SETI's just trying to get more donations again. No, it's like, the fucking saucers have landed. They're saying hello. There's out there. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I think I would need a nap. I would need a very long nap when I heard that thing. Wait, did the military actually claim it saw aliens? No, it just their claim is that they don't know what source it could come from, and they can't think of one that they can't think of a source on Earth that it would be. Needing a nap sounds like the literal response I'd have. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, oh God. It's just too much. I need a nap. Should probably dab. Yeah. More scary. Doomsayers and apocalyptic types would go full-on aggressive mode. I have no idea. I honestly don't know. Like, the thing about it is, like, if aliens turned out to be real, like, actually real, and they were here right now, there's so many things. Like, it would honestly be more sane to be like, bullshit. That can't be real. That's not a thing. That's not happening. It's all a hoax. Because it's, like, more rational to believe, like, this is some sort of elaborate hoax than to think that there are actual fucking aliens here. Like, you know? Like, it feel like honestly, like you were saying, like doomsayers and apocalyptic types. Honestly, like what do you expect? I don't even know. Like, maybe this is why, like, the disclosure people or the people who say that the government is hiding aliens from us and they know about it all along. Maybe this is like the sign that they're onto something, you know? Because I'm, you know, as science fiction as they come. I don't think I'm ready for that shit. I don't think I could think about, like, what... I don't know if I'm ready for an answer to the Fermi paradox right now. Like, shit, I got shit to do. I got videos to make. I got, you know... I got work. You know? I don't have time for there to be extraterrestrials. So yeah, my alien thing is always just like, it's probably not aliens. And I'll think of like many, many, many very logical and thought out ways about why it's not aliens. And then conclude, yo, but what if it's aliens though? Do you think the government is capable of hiding aliens? Yeah, probably not. I feel like if the government knows about aliens at this point, something has had to have leaked. You know? Even then, though, there are people who claim that they have been to Area 51 and that they leaked it, and then they've been laughed out of town. So it could be that they do have, the secret is like, the fact that it's sort of like an open secret, Like it's one of those things that like nobody who actually spoke up about it would ever be believed, right? Like, okay, like this is another thing. Like put in like a actual scenario in your head, right? We get like an Edward Snowden style leak that confirms that the U.S. government knows about and is concealing information about aliens, right? Like that shit comes out. Instantly, my brain says that's bullshit. It can't be real. Like, right? Like, I don't know. If aliens are real, how do you feel with them trying to establish colonies on Earth? I'd prefer if they didn't. I mean, they're happy. They're welcome to immigrate here, but I don't like settler colonialism when it happens to anybody. I actually had a science fiction story that I wanted to write where Earth had been colonized by aliens, and it had been several centuries since they first arrived, and basically humans are like restricted to either second-class citizens or they're like in reserves and stuff like that. But like the main focus of the book was going to be about humans sort of having alien culture and alien values imposed on them, and sort of like the more of like a story about like settler colonialism and cultural genocide and like those kinds of things, and how that would affect humans if it was like aliens, sort of like showing what settler colonialism is by taking it out of its current context and putting it in the context of aliens, and like showing what that would have been like. Harry Turtledove wrote that in 2003. Does it have 650 main characters and like 10 of them are baseball players, and the story takes, after 175 pages, the plot has gone absolutely nowhere? Is it that novel? God. I don't think I've ever bounced off a novel more hardcore than in the Balance, I think the book is called. I was like, this book is complete garbage. Never has such a good idea had such a bad execution. The second, okay, this is where every time I'm like, oh, maybe like everybody loves this book series so much, I must have been reading it wrong or something. I got to give it another shot. And then when you get to the fucking chapter where one of the POV characters is a baseball player, like, come on. There can't be anybody who is less connected to like the events of World War II than some fucking random baseball player. If you had to pick one person to be the individual who speaks to the aliens on behalf of humanity, who would you pick? Ooh, this is a good one. Chelsea Manning. That sounds fun. She seems like she could handle it. Chelsea Manning is basically the best of humanity on display in a lot of ways, and also seems pretty. Also, the meme answer is sending the person who would understand the alien philosophy much better and understand the weird ways they think, which means that really you would be doing a disservice to humanity if you sent anybody other than famous Slavonian philosopher Slavoj Žižek. Because you want to make the right first impression with the alien people. And so sending Slavoj Žižek to make first contact feels like it'd be the right answer. Um, they'd be like, we met the first human. He made a joke about a horse's balls, and what I am telling you is pure ideology. If anything, also just be a power move. Like, you send Slavoy, you send Zizek, man. You send Zizek to the aliens, then they meet any other humans, and then they're going to be like, oh, you're nothing like we expected. They'll be like, we met the humans. They drool and snort and ramble incoherently about ideology. I think this will be an easy conquest. And, you know, they send like the weaker soldiers, and then we beat them because they thought we were all just like rambling Eastern European philosophers. Galaxy Quest should have been a long-running TV series. Didn't it have some comics? So like, here's the thing about there's that equation for how long it would take for a conspiracy to get out. Here's the thing: if the conspiracy is something as like absolutely ridiculous as like absolutely like pants on head crazy as like, hey, in Area 51 they have fucking aliens hiding in the basement, like there would be like there'd be less effort for it to get out. Because if you think about it, it's been long enough for leaks to happen, yes, but also if like what if Area 51 turns out to be like the legit, right? Like there's actually aliens at Area 51. Like it's like, wasn't them testing the freaking B-2 bomber or whatever? It's or the stealth bomber. I can't remember its name right now. But no, it was actually fucking aliens. Can you imagine like what, like if that gets exposed to be like 100% true, then people like historians and stuff would say, well, this has been leaking for ages. You know, we have tons of stories that they've been hiding aliens at Area 51, right? So, like, the thing is, like, if it is a government conspiracy, which, by the way, I don't believe, but if it was, there are a lot of people who have, quote-unquote, leaked this story already that got dismissed because it was saying that UFOs are real. So, I think some people classify Slovenia as Central Europe, but honestly, to me personally, everything east of Germany and Austria is Eastern Europe. Okay, I made a mistake about how thinly cut you want your Europe to be, I guess. I guess the big question is Slovenian the language? Is it rooted in Slavic? Is it a Slavic-based language? Because then that would kind of culturally put it more into Eastern Europe. Let's check. Let's check the Slovenian language. Would aliens... Do you think aliens would look humanoid? No. My guess, like my like honest to God's answer about alien life is that if we ever discover extraterrestrial intelligence, which is actually fairly unlikely given like a bunch of different factors and like great filters and stuff, it'll be almost unrecognizable to us. Like if you think about it, so many things had to come together for us to look the way that we do. And a lot of stuff that people say to him that aliens are going to look a lot like us because of convergent evolution. If you look at like some genetic stuff, especially some like the they're called they're like there's genetics, so there's like genetic stuff, right, that like make our body plan. I don't know if you've probably read things about this in the news and stuff, like how they would take a fruit fly and then they would take like the genes that code like body planning from a fruit fly, and then they would take like the eyes or something from a fruit fly from this body planning gene and put it in a mouse, and an eye would grow where the thing showed up, which implies that there is like common coding for different body parts across very different species, which evolutionarily implies that convergent evolution isn't as common as we think it is, and that things like the eye and different body parts might not have evolved multiple times in different contexts. Which then comes to the conclusion like, okay, well, if intelligent life exists out there, it's going to be very different from what we have. And that we're probably not like the most alien thing we can think of is probably not even close to what actual aliens look like. And that we will like, we are not even like, our monkey meat brains are not even theoretically capable of understanding what kind of body shapes and plans they might have. And it's fairly likely that like their ideas for understanding the universe and like the, atmosphere and the sort of the environment they live in would be so alien to us that we probably would not be able to be in the same room with each other, let alone like maybe we'd be able to communicate if radio is even a thing they've conceived of. Like I have a feeling that like alien life is going to be really fucking weird. In the 80s Twilight Zone episode, A Small Talent for War had a very interesting take on alien encounters and human civilization working together based on their orders. Interesting. So, has anyone gotten back to me on the Slovak language? West Slavic, yeah, okay, it's a Slavic language. So yeah, it's not unreasonable to put Slovakia in Eastern Europe. Because at least culturally, like language group wise, like I always think like the division between Eastern and Western Europe is whether or not the language you speak is rooted in like Latin or German, or it's based in like Slavic stuff, which I know like makes Romania like a real exception. But yeah, talking about Slovenia, not Slovakia. Oh, right. What kind of language is Slovenian? Is Slovenian even a language? Yeah, Slovene. Okay. It's a South Slavic language. So it is a Slavic language. It's Western Eastern Europe. Yeah, there you go. Romanian is, yeah, Hungarian is most definitely not, yeah. Hungarian is like closer related to like fucking like Korean and Turkish or something, isn't it? Like there was a time, I mean, it was not very well informed and it was a long time ago, but there was a time where people who thought that aliens were real pointed to Hungarians as the reason why, because Hungarian is just such like a different language from the languages around it that they were like, where did this language come from? Must have been space. But it turns out that it's like from, kind of like from Central Europe or Central Asia, sorry. and that if it has like it's very distantly related to if it has any cousins, it's very distantly related to like Korean and like Turkish, if anything. Finnish and Hungarian, maybe. Okay, I'm getting my language groups mixed up, I think. Oh boy. So we've talked an entire hour about aliens and cultural genocide. Yeah, I guess this is Step Back. Welcome to Step Back History. Very on brand today. Hungarians related to Finnish. Okay. Slovenia and Slovakia have merged their post-mill companies because people keep confusing them. Fair. Okay, so at least I'm not, like, the most further off. Let's see what we got in the question. The old question spreadsheet. What would happen if we could make contact with a socialist or communist alien society? God damn it. Okay. Well, what would happen? I guess it really depends upon whether they're Stalinists or Trotskyists, right? Although, obviously, if aliens are communists, they're obviously Passatists, which would mean that they would believe that Earth would need to be destroyed, most of humanity would need to be destroyed in nuclear fire before the few remaining can then become communists and join the Galactic Federation. So, there you go. Is Star Trek Passatist? It is kind of, isn't it? I love how that question was probably submitted like a month or two ago. Yeah. It was submitted on May 25th. Okay, let's see what we got next. In regard to the FTL thing, PBS Spacetime made a vid about that where it pointed out that it seems like something is possible that breaks all of our other science. It's often an indicator we made a mistake. Thoughts? Yeah, probably. Probably makes more sense than like we found that it's possible to travel faster than light. Who knows? There's people who are so set on the standard model, though. There's an episode of Star Trek where they find a ship with a frozen rich guy in it, and he has a bit of a breakdown when he realizes that his wealth is meaningless in their future. Yeah, that's a really funny episode because they have 3 characters, and each character, you can tell that they have like one note for each character. There is rich guy who wants to call Switzerland and talk about his investments. Then there's this sort of like redneck guitar player. And his whole thing is that he's just an Oshkosh good old boy who likes country music and hits on ladies. And then the third character is the character that episode actually gives the most attention to, who's like this... she was like an astronaut or something, whose husband put her in cryogenic freezing, and she has to like look up her family and stuff like that. I do worry about fascist aliens. Oh yeah, if we end up with fanatic purifiers, we're screwed. Yeah, that's the thing. If we ever discover alien life, it's like, flip a coin. Heads, our lives get immeasurably better forever. Tails, it's about the last thing we discover. So, there's good reason to kind of freak out if we actually discover aliens are real. How could anybody suspect that Romulans are lying? I like how in Picard they flesh it out that like their entire culture is built upon lying. Like, lying in secrets is literally the entire basis of their culture. I love that. Like, a lot of people like to shit on Picard, but Picard is really good for stuff like that. Like, the fact that it did so much to, like, build, like, little bits of Romulan culture, and it was so good. Like, about how, like, just, like, the regular bits of advice, like, things like how Romulan houses have fake front doors that you have to go around the side. The fact that Romulans have different names for different groups of people so that they're harder to, like, track. Like, that they have, like, that, like, they have to have, like, a special clerical order that is dedicated to speaking the truth, because their society is so based on secrets and lies that they have, like, this special order of people who have to say the absolute truth all the time. So, yeah. That was my favorite stuff in Picard. What I didn't like is that it was a bit too ambitious for its budget. And that kind of came out a little bit. Suppose instead of Palestine, we gave the Jews like an uninhabited island to set up an ethno-state in the 1940s. Would you object to that project? No. I mean, I would object if they started like mistreating immigrants and stuff like that. But like that would be fine to me. Another bizarre possibility with aliens could be they came here and tried to preach religion we had no understanding of and be a huge mess. Yeah, I kind of think about like one of the things that would probably happen if we discovered aliens is that Mormons would try to preach to them, and or like Mormons are the most outgoing, but Christian missionaries would be out there trying to preach Christianity to the aliens, and just imagine trying to like be like on the other side of the galaxy and then be like, all right, hear me out. The most important place in the universe is on this planet on the other side of the galaxy, nowhere close to you. That's where God is. And like it makes the whole like our religions are so not ready for handling like multi-species whatevers. Ethno-state can be fine. I mean, they're not hurting anybody. I would have issues if they started doing a genocide, or if they started like what's it called? Like, if they had immigrants that they denied rights to and stuff like that. If that's what you think if that's like what the ethno-state means, then yeah, that'd be a problem. But like, if they wanted to like make their state their own state on a place where they're not killing people, then it's not. I mean, there are worse things that can happen. I would prefer no state. That would definitely be the better option. All right. Is living in an immoral society sufficient excuse for behaving in an immoral way? The main character in the historical novel I'm reading murdered a knight who was physically abusing him, then later murdered a witness to get away with it. Initially thought, well, they treated murderers pretty brutally in the 12th century. Maybe it's understandable to do anything to avoid that. And I realized, wait, I think how we treat murderers now is brutal. But I don't think it's okay to kill people to avoid jail. I mean, yeah, that's not good. I'm not sure where we're going with this. Is living in an immoral society sufficient excuse for behaving in an immoral way? There's a huge gray zone there. There's like, there's immoral societies. Like our society is very immoral, and because of how it's structured, we do horrible things in order to, because we have to survive. That doesn't sound like the case. It doesn't sound the case you're referring to, though. Shit. I have the hiccups. All right. Is our society as immoral as 12th century England? I mean, that's a tough call. Definitely more immoral in some ways, and definitely less moral in a lot of other ways. But I don't think in that kind of way, because I'm not like, well, 12th century England has 62 moral points. Meanwhile, our society has 68 moral points. So therefore, our society is 7 points moraler than the other one. It's like, what's it called? It's like BioWare games. Suppose Nixon and Agnew died in early 1972 and Carl Albert became president. I don't even know who Carl Albert is. Think a Democratic president would have handled the oil crisis and subsequent recession much differently than Nixon did? Probably wouldn't have given up on like Keynesian stuff as quickly, but it would have been more complex. All right. What else can ethnostate be? Like, what's an ethnostate that doesn't persecute outsiders? I don't know. I guess there isn't. Oh boy, I don't know how okay. All I see here is their sentence one is, a lot of people criticize Hitler, and then the first sentence after that is, but I am genuinely nervous about this question. A lot of people criticize Hitler for the fact that he continually sent his underlings against each other and ultimately undermined the war effort. But can you be a secure despot without taking measures to prevent your underlings from forming their own power bases? I mean, something like 4 Roman emperors were assassinated and replaced by their own heads of security. Okay. Turns out dictatorship's not the best way to run a country. That's weird. Didn't know that. That's a new one. That's a first for me. If the Democrats use budget reconciliation to get Medicare for all passed, i.e. the only ones to get stuff passed without being filibustered, it only lasts 10 years. What do you think the public response would be if there's a Republican minutes in 2030 or whatever that just let Medicare for all expire? I think people would get fucking pissed. It's because people are much more likely to be against a hypothetical system that doesn't exist yet, and much more likely to defend something that they already have that's being taken away. The final cartoon I watched leaked, and all the fans on the subreddit are, we need to respect the creators and wait for the official release. What's wrong, people? Why do you think that helps anyone but Disney? Because people are weirdly emotionally tied to corporations, is all. It's bullshit, obviously. But, Disney has done such a job at, like, just monopolizing culture. And then we, like, identify with, like, this weird megacorp. All right. Would you rather have one leftist president or several leftist people in lower government positions? Only dog on the left, a YouTuber, has talked about trying to get anarchists specifically into local government. What do you think about that? I think that's brilliant. I think that would help out quite a bit. Getting like, thing is, like a lot of anarchist ideas specifically would need would to a lot of people be helped if you could have like practical versions of that stuff existing in a situation that's in. I just meant that was he acting rationally if his motivation was Hitler not dying more so than winning the war? I mean, look how well it worked out for him. I just want your thoughts on how copyright and how long it is. Do you think it's too long? Would you like to go back to the 20-year limit or remove it altogether? Oh, definitely remove it. Intellectual property is theft. There is nothing that is ruining our culture and keeping us more held back artistically, culturally, technologically. I mean, shit. Copyright laws right now are killing people, thousands of people every day. There are like what, like 5,000 people dying a day in India, maybe more. I think a lot more, because of copyright law. And I can't think of any reason to defend people making money off their copyright that doesn't just get undermined by the fact that, like, yeah, how can you live in a world where this many people have died of lack of access to vaccines because of fucking trademark law? Copyright does not equal patent. Okay. Fair. But like, don't like that either. Like, I mean, what's it called? Copyright has basically killed the engine of culture, which is appropriation and remixing and just like blending stuff together to the point where our culture is now this like stilted mix of things. Because like, if you don't work in like I do, if you don't work in like creative fields, you don't realize like how much getting around copyright makes your life a pain in the ass, and that it's like an absolute waste of time. It's like actually like a complete mess. I don't really see much value in copyright. I would love it if people's livelihoods weren't tied to selling products. You definitely need to fix that part first. Getting rid of copyright without getting rid of private property and capitalism is a bit dicey, but yeah. Suppose Manchin can't be persuaded to break the filibuster with no voting rights bill. Red state elections will become shams. Because of this, the GOP will take both houses in 2022. In 2024, Biden will lose the presidency to a Trump-style Republican, probably just Trump. Once in total control of government, Republicans will install even more voter restrictions that will effectively mean one-party rule for the foreseeable future. With total control of governments and the courts, the GOP will do everything they can to suppress POC rights. How far will this go is hard to say, but it may well involve actual genocides. Jesus Christ. Yesterday I read a bunch of articles about the Manchin deadlock, and I started wondering what might happen if he can't be moved, and I came up with the above chain of events. I mean, that is definitely just a lot of catastrophizing. It does show that there's a lot of stuff at stake, but that is extreme catastrophizing. Let's what's it called? Let's count our egg. Let's not count our eggs before they hatch into Godzillas, okay? What if it turns out copyright laws are why we don't see aliens? Because their crash tech and backwards engineered tech are all patented, copyrighted, and classified by rich folks? Damn. Fashion Company of France appropriated the designs from the religious parkas. I mean, it's definitely a shitty thing that they did. Should it have been like a crime? Like, I don't know. That's a different thing. that's a different consideration. It's definitely insensitive and shitty, but I definitely see a gap between things about that should not be done and things that should be like actual crimes. If that makes sense. I wish we didn't have elected officials. Yeah, me neither. If Biden gets a second term, will we get mechs or not? Well, Joe Biden really does like the military. And if we're going to get mechs, the Pentagon's going to be the one that makes it. So, if anything, Biden getting a second term will probably result in, honestly, both parties give shit tons of money to the Pentagon. So Biden getting elected will probably not change the chances that we'll get mechs in any meaningful way. Ah, boy. But I have actually run out of questions for tonight's stream for this on the list, so now it's just you and me, chat. What's mechs? What do you mean, what's mechs? What do you think these voter suppression bills will do? They'll definitely make it harder to... Like, I really need to check on these bills, on what the laws do. They're definitely going to make it easier for Republicans to win office, as far as I can tell. Whether it'll be enough to overthrow a bunch of things, whether or not, like, there's already some very gerrymandered states and some very, like, Republican-controlled states that dedicated voting campaigns in 2020 were able to overthrow the results. Like in Georgia, for example. So, like, it's definitely going to be more of an uphill fight. But is it enough to say that, like, because these laws pass, that all elections in those states from here on out will be sham elections? And it's like, well, yes and no. They're going to be less democratic than they were, but also America hasn't been super democratic for most of its history, or any of its history, so... Finally run out of my questions. No, I got one more that's saved just for the Monday discourse, but it'll be deleted by tomorrow because it's almost expired. So yeah, I guess effectively I have run out of your questions. Hey, Reclam is alive.
Someone who is good at the authoritarianism, please help me budget this.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, because when's the next stream? The next stream is going to be on the 7th. So everything before the 7th is gone. It's just 2 questions. Do I want more questions? Sure, I'm just reading the chat right now, so I'll probably just do that until the next of the rest of the stream. Do you think Manchin can be moved on the fucker buster? Maybe. It seems that he is very... I don't know. If it looks like he's going to lose his seat, like if West Virginians can get pissed off with a filibuster, then maybe. But I have a feeling that West Virginians are quite okay with what's going on. Would nothing in the rest of the world change if the U.S. went fascist? In his anti-breadtube video, Bad Empanada implied nothing would change for South America if the U.S. turned into a fascist dictatorship. But can you be a secure despot without taking measures to prevent your underlings from forming their own power bases? Wait a minute. That's just the Nazi question again. Anyways, Bad Empanada in that video was most definitely... he was most definitely being hyperbolic, but his hyperbole was speaking to some form of truth, which is, yeah, if America, the fact that it says quite a bit that a lot of American liberals and even some American socialists don't really care about American foreign policy all that much, to the point where, yeah, the difference between Democratic and Republican presidents when it comes to foreign policy is basically identical. And if America did go fascist, the thing that would be the most surprising is how little its foreign policy would change. Yeah. Like I think that there's obviously like different complexities to get into, especially when it comes to diplomatic relations and things like diplomatic alliances and things like that. But in broad strokes, when it comes to like the politics of war and peace, not really. Can we continue with capitalism without eventually becoming something virtually identical to fascism? I mean, fascism is just the end state of capitalism. It's always going to get there eventually. America going fascist would affect Americans. Yes. The thing that was stated is that for like Central and South America, the U.S. going fascist would not really affect like people living in South America at all. The foreign policy that America has for South America is pretty part and parcel with any fascist state. So what 2-year trade school fields are common in Canada? Ooh, I don't know. I put a chip clip on my hand. I don't know why. I'm having a real trying to play with a chip clip to entertain myself while I ramble into a microphone. God damn. How did it affect Canada? I mean, it would sour our relations. We got a little bit of a taste of what it was like when the United States and Canada, like during Trump's administration, that was like, America getting like a half chub for fascism for 4 years. And it definitely soured the relationship between the two countries. Canada had to do a major change of its geopolitical strategy to try and become politically closer to the European Union than the United States. That was like a thing that we did. So it would be a difficult transition for us for sure, because Canada is so hopelessly dependent on the United States for economics and stuff. I heard about Joe Biden potentially not winning the next election and us falling right into another Donald Trump's type president. I worry about that too, except that I don't think it's going to be another Donald Trump type president. I think it's going to be Donald Trump. Like, I think that you're going to get a second Donald Trump administration, which, America probably shouldn't have, the 2024 election was really won for Trump in the Democratic primaries already, wasn't it? Like, we wouldn't be having these concerns if another person, say, had won the primaries than Joe Biden. But that didn't happen, and the Democrats decided to choose the most, basically a 1980s Republican as their candidate. And here we are. Were relations strained during Vietnam? I imagine they were. I think they were. Canada's relationship with America has always been very tough because Canadian prime ministers always have to thread the fact that America is a much more powerful country with a very powerful economy that results in us. Pierre Trudeau, prime minister we had in the 1960s and 70s, his statement about Canadian-American relations and being prime minister is that being Canadian prime minister and dealing with America is like trying to share a bed with an elephant. Like, it's fine, but you spend the entire time hoping that the elephant's never going to roll over. And it's like, it's not the most inaccurate way to think about it. Think Alberta would secede and join the U.S. if the U.S. went fascist? I mean, if this was Hearts of Iron 4, maybe, but that's quite extreme. the GOP can't be so naive to think Trump can really win in 2024. I think so. The thing is, like, look, the party is already realigning itself under soft acceptance of the narrative that the election was stolen, and also they're rallying around, like, they're kicking out people who criticize Trump or criticize the January insurrection already, like with Liz Cheney and stuff. So, like, it's turning into a party of Trump loyalists. If Trump doesn't, like, go to prison or something for whatever that shit that's going on in New York, he'll probably run for president again. He's already hinted that he would. And honestly, I think he'd win. I can't think of any Republican that would beat him in the primaries. And Joe Biden will be so unpopular by 2024 because he's probably going to try to, like, make it illegal to protest or something stupid like that. Or he'll try to do he'll do Joe Biden stuff anyway. And people will be so fed up with just the Democratic Party having all three branches of government and doing nothing with it again, and we'll end up with another like, I think Donald Trump will win. He might lose the popular vote, but he'll win the Electoral College, and we'll be in this whole thing all over again. Isn't Justin to the right of his dad? Oh, very much so. Justin Trudeau might be the most right-wing liberal prime minister we've had. I can't... he's spent his entire prime minister, like, time basically maximizing fossil fuel outputs and like securing, like, openly corrupt deals for massive corporations and nonprofits that he's friends with and stuff. Like, he's... Yeah. The Liberals are always a right-wing party, and now the Liberals are just, like, yeah, they fucked over electoral reform, and now they just they realize they can go as far to the right as they want because the conservatives won't give them shit. So what are they gonna do? What if Trump dies for 2024? Well, that's different. If Trump dies, or if, like, he's in prison, he probably won't run for president again. That's my theory. I don't think Donald Trump will run while dead. But I still think that Joe Biden will almost definitely lose to whoever the Republicans field because, yeah. People out here in Saskatoon, Alberta think Justin's against the oil industry. He's done so much for the oil industry. He bought an entire oil pipeline when the government left. But also, it's hard to reason with people over there. I have family that live in Saskatchewan, and the last I was in Saskatchewan was in 2019, and probably the last time I'll go, to be honest. And yeah, everyone was. I stayed in a hotel. For a very, 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 very low price in Saskatchewan, because this hotel was erected specifically to house people who are working on the pipeline. But here's the thing: the pipeline had already construction on the pipeline had already moved well past this town, so. All the jobs that were going to be created, like this hotel, the hotel was already barren. Like, we were, like, the only people in this hotel at this time. And, yeah. Turns out that the pipeline doesn't actually doesn't make any jobs. God damn. That was my time in Mooseman. What are my thoughts on Vancouver Island becoming its own province? I didn't even know that was a thing. Why would Vancouver Island become its own province? Is Victoria the capital of isn't Victoria the capital of of BC? Isn't that where the government is? That'd be like Toronto seceding from Ontario. Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. Someone was saying, "Isn't Joe pretty popular right now?" Yes, he is. His approval rating's pretty high because of the vaccines. Trust me. Once COVID is firmly in the rearview mirror, and Joe Biden tries to pass like his tax cuts for nuclear arms producers or something bill, or what's it called? The first time that he forgets that he's on television and starts ordering a pizza live on while addressing the nation, or if the first time Joe Biden like is caught wandering the streets in his house coat and slippers, or just the various lists of gaffes, mental breakdowns, or just ridiculously right-wing policies that he is just dying to get passed through Congress. Let's see. I mean, he's already passed a lot of extremely right-wing stuff, and he's been prime minister for like, a while. Or he's been president for like less than a year. Like, what's it called? He lied about the $2,000 checks. Remember that? Remember the $2,000 checks? Remember how the $2,000 checks turned into the $1,400 checks? And then turned into the $1,200 checks? And I guess maybe those went out once for the entire fucking pandemic. He sold weapons to the Saudis. Didn't hold Mohammed bin Salman accountable for committing murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Flat out lied about doing student debt relief. Still has children held in concentration camps. Announced in the most recent budget that the U.S. government's giving more money to the F-35 program than to the CDC. And of course, when are we going to see that public option? The other day, one of the liberal podcasters I follow, oh boy, doing psychic damage to yourself. If the Supreme Court makes abortion illegal in California, just refuse to enforce it. Do you agree? Yeah, probably. My guess is that abortion's not going to be made illegal by the decision, but it's probably going to get deferred down to the states. So states would have the ability to pass laws that would make abortion illegal, and you would probably have like a lot of all of the red states would basically become abortion would become illegal. But I doubt that you would get you'd have to probably pass a law through Congress to ban abortion entirely for the whole country. What are my thoughts on the potential of Joe Biden passing away in office and Kamala taking over and having her face off against Trump in potentially 2024? I mean, she couldn't even win her own state in the Democratic primaries. I have a feeling that she's not going to do that great either. Keep in mind that Kamala Harris is somebody who was so universally reviled by the Democratic voters that she had to drop out of the race before even the first primaries because she was just absolutely going nowhere in the polls. She's somebody that the party's trying to. She's someone that the all of the Hillary Clinton money is trying to push to happen, and it's just not happening. And basically, they had to torpedo the whole camp. They had to torpedo the Bernie Sanders campaign, literally kill people en masse to get Joe Biden through the primary process, and in doing so they could ramrod this fucking puppet into the vice presidency. And I don't think she's gonna go nowhere. She's a big nothing burger. If Joe Biden dies and she becomes the candidate, she'll probably get primaried and she might lose. And even if that does happen, or even if she does come through somehow, she would lose to fucking Ted Cruz. Turns out Democrats aren't super into cops right now. Members prominent about refugees and student debt relief, and yeah, ICE, and are you still talking about the White Power and Black Panther videos? I am working on the White Power series. The police video, the video on the police that I did, on the militarization of the police, was sort of a side video for the next video in the White Power series. Because the next White Power series is going to be about like the big standoffs with the militarized police. Like the next White Power series video is going to be about like Ruby Ridge and Waco primarily. So I needed to cover the militarized police to cover those like big standoffs. I'm doing the Ruby Ridge and Waco video, which I'm calling White Power Apocalypse at this point. It's scheduled to be released at the end of June. So it's not the next video I'm working on, but it's the video after that. We think it's worse for the U.S. Republican-held House and Senate and second Biden presidency, or Democratic House and Senate and second Trump presidency. I'd probably say the first situation or the second situation is worse, just because the United States, the president has so much goddamn power. It's basically like it's almost a dictatorship at this point. So, yeah. Both of them would be recipes for very little getting done in Congress anyway. Supreme Court can't just say abortion is murder. I mean, that's probably not the decision that they're going to come to. The decision's probably going to be that it's going to be that individual states can decide what their definition of the beginning of life is or something like that. Have you been following the Federalist Society saturation to U.S. judicial system at all levels, moving the courts and hard libertarian right? I mean, yeah, that's a project that's been going on for a long time. Kamala was my senator, and I was not a fan. Yeah, like, every Californian I talk to is just like, what the fuck? Yeah, the Democratic primaries in 2019 and 2020 was so fucked up. They had this weird thing where you had two extremely right-wing neoliberal candidates who were the children of Marxist fathers. And I was just like, who are these absolutely like these Marxist professors who were like, who had these children that turned out to be just absolutely like shitty human beings. And I'm like, as a leftist myself, like, I'm worried that, like, is my kid going to end up being a neoliberal? Is that a thing that's going to happen? Oh, God. Capitalism and Loneliness was a great video. That's awesome, Dr. Kanata, because my next video about being a prepper is sort of a follow-up to some of the ideas in that one, so. Can American democracy survive another Trump or Trump-like presidency? I mean, there's not that much democracy left in America. I don't know. Can American liberals survive it? I don't know. I don't know if this... I do worry about the time that somebody who has, like, Trump's politics but has, like, some modicum of political... well, Trump had some political chops. I don't know. The political future is hard to parse out right now. Not every capitalist nation is neoliberal and militarized police. United States, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Ireland. I mean, they're still capitalist countries, so they still, like, I don't know, any country that has people who, I don't know, I'm a leftist, so I think that there is basically no moral justification for any place where they still have homeless people and people living in poverty while billionaires exist. Billionaires should not exist, like, ever. And neither should homeless people. Everybody should have a home and no one should have $1 billion. That's my take. And any system, i.e. capitalism, any capitalist country is going to be that way. Capitalism is a waking nightmare to which we are all being subjected to because it is essentially it's an ideological death drive, it seems, for the human race. Where billionaires are just killing more and more of us until we get to the point where there's just one person who has all the money and everybody else is dead. And that's the person who gets to take the rocket to Mars. Who's the second one of the Marx? I know P is one. Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris both had Marxist fathers. Trump was great at PR. No GOP candidate has the media savvy that Trump commands easily. Yeah. Honestly, like, you want, like, a fascist who will, like, meme his way into the presidency, although he can't because he wasn't born there. All I can think is, like, if the opportunity ever came for Elon Musk to run for president, because he's somebody who is as, like, conceited, he's conceited enough to actually think that he could do it, and also he basically has the exact same politics as Donald Trump, and he also has the media savvy to, like, meme his way into power. So, and I mean, you know, he's basically a fascist, so we'll see what the whole thing, that being a natural citizen thing, at least prevents us from that nightmare scenario anyway. If the U.S. goes fascist, how long will it stay that way? I don't know. I feel like America going fascist would be it would be pretty quick. It would pretty quickly disintegrate the U.S. in a lot of different ways. The main thing is, would there be much of an Earth left after America went fascist? Is the question. Whew. This is so weird this time of year. I'm going to finish the stream and the sun's still going to be up. Isn't that bananas? Elon Musk will almost definitely run for president within this decade. He can't, is the thing. The Constitution forbids him from doing so. So they'd have to change the law to allow people who immigrated to America to run for president. But he's somebody who has the sort of, like, media savvy and also the, like, shitty revanchist politics that Trump could have weaponized, but maybe more sophisticated. I don't know. Tell us another old-timey story about Emma Goldman. Ooh. There's a lot of good Emma Goldman content. Let me think. Emma, do you have a good story? I mean, there was the time. This picture is her when she was. This is her mugshot. When she was arrested for being in what's it called? for being accused of being in collusion with Leon Czolgosz for killing President William McKinley. But you already know about that because I made a video about it. But when she was arrested, even though she had nothing to do with it, she did not she did not rat him out at all. Even though she had heard of him and met him on at least one occasion. I thought you didn't buy the "it can happen here" timeline as possible. I never said that. Oh, so it's Pride, and there's a reasonable amount of research, I know, because I did some of that research. There's a reasonable amount of research to imply that Emma Goldman probably was bi. Well, at least, I mean, as much as you could be before really, sexual identities really existed. But she seemed to have an unrequited romantic feeling for another person, another woman. So that's a little known thing about her, but it is a cool little story. It sort of happened near the end of her time in America, but yeah. That's a good one for Pride Month. So you don't believe that Americans have enough revolutionary potential to rise up and do what they do in the timeline? I mean, you're not... I don't know. The thing is, for that kind of shit to happen, you just need a few things to go wrong in a row. So I think it's less inevitable than Robert Evans makes it out to be, but it's definitely possible. I just don't think you're going to have that revolutionary potential I think it's going to be a lot of right-wing gangs and stuff. Can American democracy survive another Trump-like presidency without ending up as functional as a democracy as Russia has? I mean, I don't know. Does America really have a democracy that functions better than Russia at this point? Only two political parties that don't vary much at all in their actual policies run the country. I don't know. I have a feeling that a good amount of Americans would just be they would just be super happy to just be oh, you don't have to worry about another election. There's not going to be any more elections, just one president forever. Or there will be elections, but one person's always going to win. I have a feeling there's a non-zero amount of people in America who would be perfectly happy not having to worry about politics anymore. Because Americans are so individualized and checked out from just feeling nothing, they have no political agency whatsoever. Because, we're all isolated. And if you're on your own, you're basically not doing anything effective to change politics. That's just a fact. And people thinking that they can is just the mass amount of conspiracy theorists and liberals and different groups of people who have just driven themselves completely insane thinking that one person can make meaningful change on their own. So if you're doing politics, is Evans getting concerningly enthusiastic about a war? Is he? What war? I haven't been following his recent stuff. I haven't been following anybody. I stopped looking at Twitter and all of a sudden I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. Both good and bad. Americans are checked out of politics because they're not used to politics actually belonging to or working out for you. Yeah, that makes sense. You think it's just all? I feel like well, no leftists involved, maybe not, but there's not going to be that many. America doesn't really have like America's left is so small and it's so defanged and like has internalized some like anti-militarization stuff pretty heavily to the point where like if like the state really broke down, like the Socialist Rifle Association has had quite an uptick in membership, but like there's still a huge disparity between like right-wing militias and how many people are in right-wing militias and have weapons training and have advanced weaponry, and how many left-wing groups have military training and advanced weaponry. Like it's not even close. So any leftist group would just have their own communes and would basically be able to do little more than just defend it. Am I still working on the Black Panther video? Did I say I was making a Black Panther video? When did I say I was making a Black Panther video? I mean, I probably said it. I just don't remember where. What about places like California and Washington? I mean, California has tons of... like, have you been listening to the White Power series that I've been doing? Where, like, some of the heads of the Ku Klux Klan and basically, like, the haven of the white supremacist movement are in those two states. Like, Tom Metzger, the, like, most powerful Klansman in America, was based on the California Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And there are still places in California like Jefferson or Jackson that are like essentially like libertarian right wing. Like the cities are made up of liberals who think that owning guns makes you a conservative. So they wouldn't have any weaponry. They wouldn't be able to defend themselves. And like Washington is like one of like the places that white supremacists have chosen as like their homeland. Like Nazis, Washington is going to be like the Nazi headquarters. Jefferson, they're wanting their own state. All right, yeah. Like, the Nazis, there's a huge amount of Nazis who live in Washington, Oregon, and Iowa. Or Idaho, sorry. And, like, if shit goes down and a civil war breaks out, they're going to take their opportunity to build their white nation state. So it's going to go right away. Could they hold down the majority indefinitely? I don't know. Because I don't have a time machine, or I can't predict all things, but, yeah. Anyways, it is 9 o'clock. So let's raid somebody, shall we? Who's a good person to raid? Let's raid Lumiru. Why not? Alright, everybody. I'll be back next week. Be kind. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'll be back on Monday. Hopefully my internet won't shit on me again. And I'll see you around.